My name is Rudean Leinaeng, and I have something to say. My driving force is to help people that need help in terms of learning, getting an education, in any way that I can help. Encouragement. When I was in high school, I went to Hunter College High School. And the last year, my senior year, I had a very good teacher for chemistry. And I liked it, I enjoyed it. I knew it would be a tough field to get into, but I'm going to try to become a chemist. Well, my father always was a person that loved Africa. He always wanted to go to Africa, but my mother didn't want to go. So, of course, he had his 3 daughters as well. So anytime anything having to do with Africa came on the television, we were all called into the living room to watch it. So that was one of the things that I always thought about was how would I get to Africa? And my girlfriend, her name is Ayo, and we planned that we would go together. And we wanted to go to Tanzania because that was the center of the Pan-Africanist movement. So what happened is I applied. We both applied. She applied. She was a nurse. She was actually one of my students, but we became very good friends. And I applied, of course, as a chemistry teacher. And 2 years passed, and we didn't hear anything. After a year, she heard something from another organization, I think it was Church World Service, and they wanted her to go to Africa. So I said, well, just go ahead and go because we don't know we don't know whether or not we're going to hear from Tanzania. So a year after she left, I got a letter with my contract. And so then it was like in probably January, I got the letter and asked me to come right away. Then, of course, I couldn't just come right away. So I went to the embassy and I told them to send a telegram and saying that I could come in June if they still wanted me. And I had 2 children who would be coming with me. Of course, that was in the contract as well. So they said, fine, come in June as soon as you can. So I went, end of June. Thomas was 12. Lyle, who was the baby, was about 10. Well, getting off the plane, I got off and it was 1974. So it was a big building, of course, the airport. And I see all these strange people and people selling things and all kinds of stuff. And I was wondering, I was standing there with the 2 kids and they're wondering who's going to meet us. I'm wondering who's going to meet me. And I said, gee, I hope I didn't make a mistake coming here. But somebody did come and meet me, took us to it was not really a hotel, it was like a boarding house. And then eventually we got into the hotel a couple of weeks later. I didn't start teaching immediately, but what I did do immediately is the person that was driving us around, called me came over the next week and said, there is a national chemistry meeting in the city of Dodoma, which is actually it's now the capital. And it's like in a sort of desert area. And the minister wants you to go. So I said, well, I have 2 kids. He said, well, bring them with you. So the next week we went to Dodoma. They had a bus from Dar es Salaam, and we traveled there, and we spent a week. And it was very good, actually, because I could learn about the whole educational system in terms of science at this meeting. Well, I would say this is the first country I lived in which the majority of people were Black, the vast majority. So I felt very comfortable there. And Tanzanians, I won't say they're nosy, they're very curious about various people. So once you're curious about somebody, you have to become friendly with them. So they always had all kinds of questions, what happened to the boy's father? I was divorced at the time. And why didn't he take the children? And they always asked those questions to the children, and then the children got sick of it. And they would say, we don't know. So, but I got to meet a lot of people that way. Tanzania was the hub of refugees. They had the ANC there, African National Congress, and of course they had a school there, uh, which the women and children attended. Well, the women helped with the school, the children attended, South African children attended, children of refugees. They also had refugees from Angola and Mozambique, right. And Frelimo was the liberation movement of Mozambique. So they had a school and they had a group there as well. So when the president of Frelimo came, Samora Machel, we had a parade in which we walked to the President Nyerere, who's the president of Tanzania, his house. All the students and the teachers walked there. And so we raised maybe several thousand rand. Not rand, I'm sorry. Several thousand shillings. So that was to raise money for Frelimo, the orphans and the students. Well, I wasn't really organizing all the time. That was one incident. And there were other incidents. Remember, it's a 2-year period. Yeah, so first of all, I was staying at a hotel, the Skyview Hotel. And I had shipped a refrigerator from the States, one that uses their electricity, a 220. And so that was installed in my room. And so the kids and I would go to the market and shop, and I would cook in the room because I couldn't afford to eat in the hotel's dining room. We had to pay for that. I had a 2-year leave from Bronx Community College. The first year was a sabbatical, which you get half pay. The second year was an unpaid leave. I already had tenure there, so I didn't want to give that up because they wanted me to stay in Tanzania some more years. But I said, for security, I'm going to go back. So I left Tanzania. My husband was a South African. I met him before I left for Tanzania. I met him at a party at one of the Lesotho's embassies. And so I knew him like maybe a year and a half before I left. When I came back, then we decided to get married. I was involved with the African National Congress, the ANC women's group, which they had a group of women here that were political. So we were going around and trying to get the ANC popularized because there were so many horrible rumors going around about the ANC, which the government of South Africa came here and were interviewed and spread all these rumors. People are very happy there and all of that. They don't want democracy and all of that. So we had to popularize the ANC to get support. So that, and the ANC, they held a lot of meetings at this house because their office was bugged. So, and then we had August 9th is South African Women's Day. We used to arrange for that to, again, people learn about the ANC and what they were doing. And we collected money for the children that were in the ANC school in Tanzania and whatnot, yeah. So I worked with the ANC group here, the women's group here. And then I joined RE not too long after that. And RE also was doing similar work, as well as the work they were doing in the United States. A voter's registration, everything to do with women's rights. We had a Women's Bill of Rights. And so we used that as our lead. Well, I did everything that they needed. I was a fundraiser, though. I organized several fundraisers for them. One of them starred Bonnie Burroughs. So yeah, that was we had that at a huge fundraiser at Borough Manhattan College. So we just tried to raise funds as much as we could, you know. And then I also was with branch of RE, which is Bronx RE, and we did tabling for the voters' rights and that kind of thing, you know. In 1995, my husband decided to go back home to Bloemfontein, South Africa. And at that time, he had already voted in the embassy here for the ANC party, and he was working at the UN, broadcast in the anti-apartheid division. And so he left and went home, and I wanted to join him. So I was going back and forth about 4 times a year, and it was a lot. So when they came up at the college with what they call a package, you could retire in advance and get a certain number of years added to your retirement. So I took the package. That was 97. I think I was just 60 then. Yes. And so then my sister-in-law, whose name was Kitaboni, she came, and cousin Lillian, they came to bring me back to Bloemfontein. He knew everyone. They called them the 12 disciples, all of the 12 guys that came back. I think it was probably 10 of them that were alive, or 10 or 11 that were alive, and they all came back. So they were known, as I said, the 12 disciples. So everyone knew him, and they knew that he was away. He came back after 30 some odd years. He was in exile. So he tells the story that they left in, I think it was 60 that they left, and they told their parents that they were going to play soccer. And they burned their cards, their ID cards, and they told the parents they'd be back on the Monday. So they didn't come back for over 30 years. After my husband passed away, I came home, and when my son said he wanted to do the film, well, I'm trying to remember the time. Just after that, all of the guys that were still alive, that had left with him, well, of course, came to the funeral, and they came to the house afterwards. So when Thomas he came over, and Lyle came over to the funeral and whatever. And so then he talked with them and got information and so forth. And so then he went home, and then when he came back a little bit later, maybe a year or so later, he was able to interview them. He was able to set up for the film. I went around to, when I went there, I didn't say this, but when I went there, the head of the Free State, Ivy Casabori, I knew her from the United States. And so she called me, and I thought she was calling to give my husband a job, but she wanted me to have a job. So I was embarrassed. Anyway, so she asked me to be, it was really a title to be in her office and make sure everything goes smoothly. So I said, really, I don't know. But anyway, I did do it. My husband said, go ahead and do it. So I worked for her for a year. She went on, she left to go to the head of the I think it was the broadcasting system in Johannesburg. And she wanted me to go, but I said, no, I'm with my husband here in Bloemfontein. So anyway, I worked there for a year or so. And so I got to know a lot of people, because she was kind of, I won't say she was mean, but harsh. She was a little bit harsh. So a lot of times she would send me to different offices, and I'd have to, ask them for things and whatever. So anyway, one of the people that that liked the fact that I was there, I asked him, could he help us with the film financially? I went to several of the ministers, yeah. And so one of them gave us some money, and he gave us 2 trucks, 2 buses. So that was a big help, yeah. And then the Minister of Tourism and libraries and things like that, he gave us some money. That was the first grant we got for the film. So then I worked, Thomas came, we interviewed people for the different roles in the film, and one of my friends there, a South African woman, she headed the library in the township. And so she made that whole area, because they had that whole area, a changing area. And then she knew everybody in town, so she could call the mayor or whatever and tell them, we'll close off these streets, or the police, and close the streets. So she was amazing, an amazing help, because she knew everyone, So then we did the film. It showed all over, except it only showed twice in South Africa. That was a problem. But It showed all over. It premiered at BAM in Brooklyn. We had a huge crowd, and a lot of the South African young people came. And they said, "Is this showing in South Africa? Is this?" They were very excited. When are you going to show this in South Africa? And it was in all kinds of festivals in Europe, in Africa, but only twice in South Africa. When I came home, I was figuring, what am I going to do? Well, I started working at the church at the church pantry and doing different things. And then one day I saw an ad. I went for coffee down in Harlem, and I saw an ad it said writing lessons for the Frederick Douglass Academy. So I went to that. It was at the NAACP hall. And so we met this wonderful writer who taught the class, Grace Edwards. She writes Harlem Mysteries. And so she taught the class. So then I joined the class, and she asked me what I was going to write about. So I said, look, let me write about my grandfather, because actually when I had come home, or several years ago, I think even before I left, my son Thomas had interviewed my father, and actually he filmed my father while I was interviewing him. So that was several years before that, and so he had the script of that interview, and so I remembered that I had that. I says, well, I'll look for the script. Now I'm looking in papers for many years ago, but I did find it, and then I used that script to start writing about it. And my father's father, my grandfather, Albert Johnson Sr., he always told lots of stories to my father, which he repeated them to us, in the interview. So that was the whole basis of the book. The name of the book is Coal, C-O-A-L, Coal, War, and Love. During World War I, or before the World War I, they needed soldiers, before we even entered the war. And so the governor of New York State, he established the first black, National Guard, the first National Guard. So my grandfather worked at the Capitol. He was what they call a stoker, stoking coal. That's where coal comes from. And so the person that was in charge of the stokers and some of the other janitors brought them to this lieutenant's office, and he was trying to get them to sign up for this National Guard. And so my grandfather told him, well, I don't think I'm going to have the time. I have kids at home. I paint houses on the weekend to make extra money. And I'm also working, full-time here, 6 days a week. And so he said, well, you think you'd be able to recruit for it? He said, okay. So he recruited for this National Guard. Then he decided to join. And so then he joined it. And right away they were taken into the army when the war was declared. And so this group became this black group became the Harlem Hellfighters. And they were taken to different places in the States to train. They only stayed in the States a couple of weeks because they were nearly lynched some of the places. In Spartanburg, South Carolina. But they had guns, so the people knew better than to try to lynch them. So anyway, they stayed 2 weeks there, and so the captain, which was white, wrote to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He was, I think, head of the Navy then, or whatever, saying, this is too much. We need to send them to France right away. And so that from there they went back to New York, and then they were shipped out to France. And so one of the guys on the boat said, he was part of the Harlem Hellfighters. He says, all we got in training was a cigarette and a haircut. So anyway, they went to France. When they get to France, they find out that General Pershing was the head of the whole the whole U.S. Army there. And so he had them cleaning up stuff and building stuff and whatnot and so forth. And then eventually he gives them to the French army. So they fought under the French flag, not the American flag. It was the Germans that actually called them the Harlem Hellfighters because they won most of their fights. My father, he accepted everyone. He never criticized people. You know, he might talk about the work that they do, but he didn't criticize anyone. You know, and my mother was also a very loving person, and I guess my faith and my belief in myself and belief in other people that they will do the right thing. Well, it has to come from within. You have to want to do it, you know. And everything that happens affects everyone. Let's put it that way, you know. So just have to keep doing it, you know. Being active, knowing what's going on around, and having a feeling of empathy for other people.